This is the story of how an international projection of supreme royal authority can be completely dismantled by a single red light on a scanning machine at a private airport terminal. In less than 24 hours, the highly secure VIP departure lounge at RAF Northolt transformed from the launching pad of Queen, Camilla's global diplomatic empire, into the physical staging ground of her most terrifying public isolation. What transpired behind the heavily guarded perimeters of the royal tarmac was not a chaotic shouting match or a sudden shift in travel itineraries, but a cold clinical execution of international protocol. Standing entirely alone under the deafening roar of the state aircraft's engines, Camilla faced the devastating realization that her inner circle had been systematically stripped of their global clearance, and that against the unyielding borders of the British state, she actually commands no true authority. What appeared to be a routine travel logistics update was in reality a total dismantling of her carefully manufactured shadow court, delivering a message that was as silent as it was brutal. In this video, we are going to unpack the secret administrative power grab that triggered the most ruthless internal containment strategy the modern monarchy has ever executed on the international stage. We will examine the hidden paper trail Camilla created when she attempted to secure permanent, state-funded diplomatic passports and independent envoy status for her private inner circle ahead of a highly anticipated Commonwealth tour. We will look at exactly how Prince William and Princess Anne intercepted this unprecedented maneuver within the Foreign Office, using the cold, unyielding machinery of border bureaucracy to execute a silent, devastating retaliation. What viewers noticed in the shifting seating arrangements and the conspicuously empty tarmac was not an accidental oversight, but forensic proof of a shifting power dynamic. By the end of this account, you will understand how the illusion of absolute power can be completely shattered by a revoked security clearance and a locked terminal gate, leaving a consort to realize that she owns absolutely nothing. To truly comprehend the magnitude of this structural collapse, we must first look at the towering illusion of supremacy Camilla had successfully manufactured over a 30-year game. For 3 decades, the global audience watched what appeared to be the most sophisticated public relations rehabilitation in history, navigating her transition from the deep shadows of public scandal to the absolute apex of the British social hierarchy. Behind the glittering state banquets and the heavily curated international press releases, her psychological objective was never just acceptance, it was absolute institutional permanence on a global scale. We witnessed what appears to be the systematic, quiet erasure of Princess Diana's legacy through the gradual replacement of traditional foreign courtiers, the subtle rewriting of palace diplomatic history, and the consistent aggressive push to elevate her non-royal children into the permanent fabric of the international court. Camilla operated under the unwavering belief that because she held total control over the heart and confidence of King Charles, she inherently wielded the executive authority of the monarchy itself across the globe. She mistook the king's personal devotion for unyielding constitutional and diplomatic power. She built an empire of influence, surrounded by an expensive public relations apparatus that convinced her the public had forgotten the past and that the institution was finally hers to reshape. Feeling entirely untouchable right up until the moment the trap snapped shut. The trigger for this unprecedented internal war occurred as the palace began the highly classified logistical preparations for a major upcoming Commonwealth tour to Australia and Samoa. Recognizing the inherent fragility of a consort's position and facing the stark reality of the king's ongoing health vulnerabilities, Camilla was gripped by a sophisticated form of commercial and social desperation. She knew that her access to state-funded luxury sovereign immunity and global deference was tied entirely to the lifetime of her husband. Driven by this panic, Camilla attempted a breathtaking, secret administrative maneuver designed to secure permanent international standing for her bloodline before the window of opportunity slammed shut. Behind closed doors, she quietly submitted a series of confidential directives to the Royal Travel Logistics Division and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. The paperwork contained an extraordinary request. Camilla attempted to bypass standard government vetting to secure permanent red diplomatic passports for her private public relations architects, her closest aristocratic allies, and her non-royal son. Furthermore, she requested that they be designated with official special envoy status for the duration of the reign. This was not a simple request for upgraded seating on a flight. It was a calculated attempt to use the sovereign's ultimate foreign prerogative to grant her family permanent state-funded diplomatic immunity, completely bypassing customs, securing taxpayer-funded travel allowances, and establishing lifelong international authority that would outlast the current reign. She was attempting to embed her personal loyalists into the permanent machinery of the state's foreign service, effectively creating a rival diplomatic court independent of the sovereign bloodline. Camilla fundamentally believed that if the paperwork slipped through the transitionary chaos of the new reign, her future was entirely untouchable. What Camilla did not anticipate was that the administrative machinery she was attempting to manipulate was being forensically monitored by the ultimate gatekeepers of the institution. While she was busy projecting power through her media operatives, Princess Anne and Prince William were quietly protecting the perimeter. Anne, who operates with a fierce, almost terrifying devotion to the preservation of the crown's integrity on the global stage, has never engaged in the glittering media games that Camilla relies on. As a senior diplomat who understands that a red passport is a sacred constitutional trust rather than a personal party favour, Anne intercepted the unauthorised paperwork before it could be finalised. She immediately recognised that what looked like a routine administrative travel request was actually a sophisticated form of institutional trespassing. Anne did not react with anger or leak emotional stories to the tabloid press. Instead, she worked in the shadows alongside Prince William. William, who has carried the silent, enduring grief for his mother, Diana, and who has watched his own wife, Catherine, offer nothing but uncomplaining sacrifice and flawless execution of duty across countless grueling international tours, understood exactly what was at stake. Catherine's grace, under immense global pressure, stands as the true emotional anchor of the British public and for William. Camilla's attempt to elevate a private entourage using the highest diplomatic privileges of the state crossed an unforgivable red line. Together, William and Anne conducted a forensic audit of the paper trail within the Foreign Office, documenting the unauthorised requests and the precise, calculated strategy to marginalise the rightful bloodline on the international stage. Their moral outrage was profound, but in the upper echelons of the British monarchy, you do not retaliate with screaming matches or dramatic airport confrontations. You retaliate with weaponised restraint. The execution of their revenge was completely silent, turning the very border bureaucracy Camilla tried to exploit into a clinical, inescapable guillotine. William, utilising his overarching authority regarding the security and integrity of the royal family's travel protocols, quietly issued a new internal mandate directly to the UK Border Force and the Royal Air Force Logistical Command. He did not confront his stepmother. He simply dropped a bureaucratic wall that she could not possibly see until she crashed into it. The true visual humiliation was reserved for the morning of the royal departure, as Camilla's private companions and family members arrived at the highly secure VIP perimeter of RAF Northolt. Expecting the heavy gates to swing open for the Queen's new international envoys, they were met with a devastating reality. As the entourage confidently handed over their newly printed red diplomatic passports to the security officials, the scanning machines flashed a brilliant, unforgivable red. Their diplomatic clearances had been digitally deactivated without warning, and their names had been cleanly expunged from the official state flight manifest. There were no flashing cameras or public scenes. There was only the cold, unyielding reality of a locked security gate and a polite, stone-faced border official explaining that their documents were void. Camilla's entourage was firmly turned away by state security and informed that if they wished to travel, they would need to proceed to a civilian commercial airport and submit to standard public customs using standard blue civilian passports. They were physically and digitally quarantined from the sovereign's airspace. As the realization set in, the Queen Consort was forced to walk out onto the windy tarmac completely exposed. When she climbed the stairs of the state aircraft and scanned the luxury royal cabin, fully expecting to see her carefully assembled echo chamber of advisors and strategists, she found only empty leather seats and the icy, indifferent stares of the bloodline royal staff. Standing in the suffocating silence of the royal cabin, stripped of the diplomatic machinery she thought she controlled, Camilla was forced to face the most terrifying truth of all. The billion-dollar public relations empire could not bypass a sovereign border checkpoint. Her carefully orchestrated plan to elevate her family to international royalty had been dismantled in a single keystroke. As the cabin doors sealed shut, locking her inside a gilded cage of total isolation, The panic of her exposed commercial desperation set in. She walked toward the front of the aircraft and picked up the encrypted satellite telephone to demand an immediate audience with King Charles, completely unaware that the devastating silence waiting for her on the other end of the line would change the reading of absolutely everything. The heavy, encrypted satellite telephone felt like ice against her ear as the secured line connected. From the isolated cabin of the state aircraft to the King's private study back in London, in the echoing, suffocating silence of the empty VIP section, Camilla presented her grievances with the breathless, practiced urgency of a woman whose entire international fortress was suddenly in freefall. She laid out the humiliating border rejection at the RAF Northolt tarmac, the deactivated diplomatic passports of her inner circle, and the devastating administrative blockade orchestrated by Prince William and the UK border force. She demanded an immediate sovereign intervention. She fully expected King Charles to summon the Foreign Secretary, overrule the Prince of Wales, and order a secondary aircraft to transport her newly minted envoys to the Commonwealth with full state honours. For 3 decades, this exact dynamic had been her ultimate safety net. Charles had fractured his relationship with the British public, fundamentally dismantled the institution's popularity during the 1990s, and absorbed immense global criticism, all to ensure she would one day wield the absolute executive power of a queen on the world stage. But that is where the narrative shifts completely, not because of a grand, dramatic argument across the secure line, but because of a devastating, unyielding silence. King Charles did not summon his aides to issue a royal countermand. He did not order the Foreign Office to reinstate the red passports. Instead, he met his wife's frantic demands with a heavy, agonizing exhaustion that carried the absolute weight of the monarchy's diplomatic and constitutional future. The king's silence was not a sign of a husband's indifference. It was the profound, calculated concession of a reigning monarch who had just been forced to face the harsh reality of his own shifting reign and his own vulnerabilities. Charles understands what Camilla refuses to accept. The diplomatic survival of the House of Windsor no longer depends on the ambitions of the present, but on the unshakable, legally binding international stability of the future, a future entirely managed by Prince William. By refusing to intervene, the king quietly validated the administrative guillotine that William and Princess Anne had dropped. He signalled to the entire palace apparatus and to the government officers monitoring the situation that the true governing authority over the sovereign's international footprint had already transitioned to the Prince of Wales. Intervening to protect Camilla's private diplomatic network now would mean declaring a public institutional war against his own heir and his own sister, risking a catastrophic scandal that would permanently cheapen the crown's global prestige right before a major Commonwealth tour. In that agonizingly quiet conversation, Charles chose the monarchy over her. He chose the survival of the bloodline, and in doing so, he left Camilla sitting in an empty cabin, facing the terrifying realization that her ultimate shield had just dissolved. This devastating silence exposes the raw, fragile underbelly of what can only be described as Camilla's profound commercial and social desperation. To the outside world, she steps off state aircraft wearing the finest tailored coats and the historic royal jewels, creating the glittering illusion of absolute global power. But the cold, economic and constitutional reality of the British monarchy is that she actually owns nothing. She holds no independent royal wealth and she possesses no inherent diplomatic authority. The multi-million-pound travel budgets, the sovereign immunity protocols, and the immense logistical engine of the Foreign Office do not belong to her. Her frantic attempt to secure permanent state-funded diplomatic status for her non-royal network was not a mere travel perk. It was a panicked, calculated maneuver to build a legally binding, taxpayer-subsidized international fortress for her family before the inevitable transition of the crown. A permanent red diplomatic passport is essentially an administrative blank check. It guarantees lifelong elite status immunity from foreign prosecution and seamless access to the highest echelons of global wealth and power. Camilla knew that the moment King Charles is no longer on the throne, her institutional currency drops to absolute zero. She becomes entirely dependent on the financial and logistical grace of King William V. Her push to embed her son and her public relations operatives into the permanent diplomatic economy of the state was born out of a suffocating awareness that her time at the top is strictly finite. William's decision to execute a forensic audit and permanently void those security clearances was a masterclass in institutional containment. He weaponized the border bureaucracy of the state to lay bare her financial vulnerability, revealing that without the explicit approval of the Prince of Wales, her personal empire is completely insolvent and internationally grounded. The deeper meaning behind this silent execution of revenge became highly visible in the hours and days that followed the isolated flight. The locked security gates at RAF Northolt were not just a logistical failure for Camilla's team, they were the ultimate visual representation of an institutional quarantine. The subtle details of this shifting power are now visible to anyone who understands the silent language of the British monarchy. As the state aircraft crossed into international airspace, the flight manifests and official seating charts were quietly updated by royal courtiers. The spaces reserved for the Parker Bowles entourage were erased, returning the visual focus of the tour entirely to the working royals. This is where the story shifts from the cold execution of containment to the undeniable restoration of the true order. As Camilla's borrowed international power evaporated, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, retained her rightful place with an effortless, quiet dominance, even from thousands of miles away. The contrast between the two women could not have been more stark. And the institution knows exactly who holds the true power on the world stage. Catherine has never needed to submit unauthorized memorandums to the Foreign Office to secure her family's global legacy. She does not need to smuggle public relations operatives through private airport terminals to project authority or generate international goodwill. Her power is rooted in uncomplaining sacrifice, flawless execution of duty, and the unshakable legitimacy of the sovereign bloodline. When Catherine steps off an aircraft on a foreign tarmac, she organically commands the respect of global leaders and injects incalculable value into British soft power. Her influence is authentic, earned through years of silent endurance and absolute loyalty to the crown. By ensuring that the diplomatic integrity of the monarchy remains untainted by Camilla's private overreach, William was doing more than protecting the government's travel budgets. He was offering a silent, devastating defense of his mother's legacy, proving that the true international value of the institution belongs exclusively to the rightful heirs. For years, William has watched the quiet, systematic attempts to minimize Princess Diana's historical diplomatic triumphs, the way she single-handedly modernized the crown's charitable and global reach. By fiercely guarding the sovereign's borders, William guaranteed that the international prestige of the crown will be preserved. He ensured that Catherine will never have to compete with a manufactured state-funded shadow court operating under stolen diplomatic cover. It was not an act of petty vindictiveness. It was the ultimate silent restoration of order, executed through the undeniable permanence of institutional protocol. Palace courtiers, Foreign Office, diplomats, and Royal Air Force commanders possess an exquisite radar for where the true authority lies. And they have already begun shifting their allegiances entirely toward Prince William and Princess Anne. The message has been sent through 1,000 minor logistical updates. Those who align themselves with Camilla's private territorial ambitions will find themselves locked outside the corridors of true global power. Ultimately, this extraordinary internal reckoning resonates far beyond the heavy security gates of a military airport because it validates a fundamental truth about power and legitimacy. It demonstrates that the ancient organism of the British monarchy cannot be permanently hollowed out by clever public relations, nor can its highest diplomatic endorsements be hijacked through emotional manipulation. The crown protects its assets, its history, and its borders at all costs. Camilla believed that by outlasting her critics and securing the title of Queen, she had achieved absolute permanent victory. She thought she had conquered the institution and secured the keys to its global reach, but she failed to recognize that true royal authority cannot be taken by storm or secured through administrative tricks. As she sat in the quiet luxury of the royal cabin, looking at the empty seats that contained her dismantled future, the grand illusion vanished completely. She may still wear the state jewels and fly on the state aircraft for now, but everyone inside the palace, and soon everyone in the world, knows the truth. The trap has snapped shut. The borders of the estate have been permanently redrawn. The reign of the diplomatic shadow court has been entirely dismantled, leaving behind only the cold reality of a consort who is merely a temporary guest in a house she sought to rule, and the undeniable truth that the era of Prince William has already begun. If you found this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics and diplomatic battles of the British monarchy insightful, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.